The sheriff stood at the edge of my driveway, scratching his head while two animal control officers aimed their catchpoles at Murphy and my guide dog, my closest companion, the one who literally helped me navigate the world. I sat trembling on the porch of my lakefront cabin, struggling to keep my voice steady. "He's a service dog," I said firmly. "He's trained. He's not dangerous. He's all I have." But Karen Witherspoon, the HOA president, stood nearby pointing dramatically and shouting. That monster barked at me and lunged. I was genuinely scared for my life. Murphy, calm as ever, didn't react. He sat close beside me, his golden tail slowly swaying, his harness clearly marked, "Guide dog A, do not pet." One of the officers spoke into his radio, saying, "We might need backup if the dog becomes aggressive." My throat tightened. "You don't get it?" I said. "I'm blind. That dog is my sight." Karen crossed her arms, her tone as cold as her expression. "Blind or not, your animal is a threat. This is a private home neighborhood. No dangerous dogs allowed. And frankly, your cabin is an eyesore." Then came the order that broke me. "We're taking the dog." Murphy growled for the first time ever. And what happened next made Karen scream louder than before. That's when everything began to change. If you're wondering who I am, my name is Jonathan Miller. I'm 41, a former firefighter who lost his vision in an explosion. Afterward, I moved into my late grandfather's cabin out here in Missouri. Over the course of a year, I restored the place myself, hammering and repairing every inch. It became my sanctuary. Murphy, my golden retriever, was with me every step of the way. Professionally trained to assist the blind, he wasn't just a dog, he was my lifeline. Murphy could fetch my medications, guide me across rugged trails, and even alert me to anyone entering the property. He kept me grounded, literally and emotionally. Trouble started when I moved in permanently last spring. At first, it was minor annoyance as someone dumped a stack of home newsletters on my porch, even though my cabin wasn't technically inside HOA jurisdiction. Then came the threatening note, "Paint your deck the right color or expect a visit." I assumed it was a joke. It wasn't. It was Karen Witherspoon, president of the Spruce Pines HOA. She had a sharp blonde bob, oversized sunglasses that screamed litigation, and a habit of acting like she ruled the entire lakeside, even areas the HOA didn't officially cover. One morning, I was walking Murphy to the mailboxes when she stopped me. "You shouldn't have that dog off leash," she snapped. "He's in a harness," I replied. "He's my service animal." "I'm blind," she sniffed and replied. "Well," he startled me. "You people really need to keep things under control." I bit back my response. A few days later, a red sticker appeared on my front door. "Animal nuisance under investigation." Murphy had never barked without cause, never growled. He wasn't just obedient, he was gentle. I reported it to the sheriff's office. They told me to ignore it. "They can't enforce anything if you're not part of the HOA," they said. So I brushed it off until the following week, when I received 37 different HOA citations, each personally signed and delivered by Karen. Violations included unauthorized fencing, improper signage for a service dog, a mailbox that didn't meet HOA standards, even though I didn't have one, having a dangerous animal, grass too tall, an unkempt shed. The list went on. I chuckled at first. My shed was actually an old smokehouse, but then I realized that someone had been watching me closely, too closely. They knew details no one should. That's when I suspected they might be trespassing while I slept. I installed motion detectors around the property. Murphy started sleeping alert, ears perked toward the door. One night, I heard his low, steady growl. I reached for my cane and made my way to the front door. The smell hit me first, a cheap perfume and cigarette smoke. "Karen, what are you doing?" I asked from behind the door. "You need to get control of that animal," she hissed. "I filed a formal complaint with Animal Control." "He's my guide dog," I said. "Being disabled doesn't give you the right to endanger your neighbors," she snapped. The next morning, I found Murphy's leash slashed and dangling from the porch rail. A clear message. That's when I knew Karen wasn't just being difficult, she was unhinged. I installed cameras with help from my friend Tara, a local vet and one of the few people who truly respected Murphy. She helped position the lenses toward the trail, porch, and the hill Karen always came from. Then Animal Control showed up. They claimed multiple complaints had been filed, accusing Murphy of attacking people near the Hose Lake Trail. I knew who was behind it. I offered to show his certifications, ID, and service tags. They said they'd return for an inspection, and they did it this time with the sheriff, and with Karen. That was the moment you saw at the beginning, Murphy on the porch, the officers closing in with catch poles, and then, Murphy lunged but not at the officers. He charged toward the trees behind Karen, barking and growling like he'd found something evil. The officers halted. Karen froze. From the trees emerged a teenager in a hoodie, slingshot in hand, and from his expression, clearly up to no good, from the boy's belt hung something familiar, tattered and red. Murphy's severed leash. He glanced over at Karen, then spoke words that made the air feel like it had been punched out of the sky. She paid me to scare the blind guy's dog. In an instant, the entire narrative crumbled. But even that wasn't the most shocking part. The woods went completely still. Not even the birds made a sound. The boy's confession echoed in the silence. Karen's jaw fell open. "You little liar!" she snapped. The sheriff held up his hand. "Let him talk." The teen, maybe 15 or 16, looked uneasy, but stood his ground. Murphy stayed close by my side, his attention fixed on the boy. I gently placed my hand on Murphy's back and whispered, "It's okay." His growl faded away. The sheriff stepped in closer. "What's your name?" "Dylan," he muttered. "I live 2 streets over." She gave me $20 to sneak into his yard and mess with his dog. Karen lost it. "This is insane. He's just some troublemaker trying to make excuses for that dangerous animal." Just then, Tara pulled into the driveway in her dusty old Jeep and jumped out. "Hang on," she said, holding up her phone. "I set up trail cams yesterday. I haven't checked them yet, but if he came through the woods, it'll be on there." Karen paled. The animal control officers exchanged wary glances. The sheriff folded his arms. "All right," he said. "Let's take a look." Tara popped the memory card from the camera and inserted it into her tablet. We all stood silently as the footage began to play. There it was, a slim figure creeping through the trees the night before, slipping behind my shed and reaching for something on the porch. The video clearly showed a glint of metallic and ifia slicing through Murphy's leash. Then, unmistakably, Karen's voice came from off-screen, hissing, "Do it quick. Don't let anyone see you." Karen lunged to grab the tablet from Tara, but one of the officers stepped in to block her. "Ma'am," he said sternly, "you just attempted to have us confiscate a certified service dog under false pretenses. That's a felony in Missouri. You're also looking at charges for animal harassment, trespassing, and falsifying an official report." Karen's face turned beet red, then ghost white. But he's been a problem since he got here," she stammered. "That cabin doesn't fit in with the community. His grass is always overgrown. He walks that dog without permission, and he refuses to attend home meetings." "I'm not even part of your HOA," I said, my voice calm but firm. "This cabin's been in my family longer than Spruce Pines has existed." The sheriff nodded. "That's correct. Property records confirm his land isn't under HOA control. Never has been." Karen's lips trembled. "And yet you've been fining me, sending threatening notes, and trespassing on my land," I added. Murphy leaned gently against my leg, sensing how shaken I was. "I just want peace," I said quietly. "I came here for solitude, to heal. I lost my sight saving 2 kids from a burning building. I thought this place might help me piece my life back together." Tara placed her hand on mine and gave it a reassuring squeeze. "I never thought I'd be bullied for having a disability or for needing a service dog." The officers called for backup. One stayed with Karen while the others spoke with Dylan, who looked more remorseful than defiant. I wasn't sure I wanted to press charges against a kid who had clearly been manipulated. That decision would have to come later. Karen, however, was escorted to her car and warned not to return without clearance. Even as she drove off, she yelled from her window, "This isn't over. You'll regret bringing that dog here." No apology, no regret, just venom. The sheriff returned to me, his tone softer now. "She'll likely face legal consequences, but that's for the courts to decide. You and Murphy are safe for now." Murphy gave a gentle bark, almost like he understood what was being said. That night, the cabin finally felt peaceful again. For the first time in days, I slept straight through. No anxious trips to the doors, no creeping sense of danger. But the calm didn't last. The next morning, I walked out to the dock with my coffee, hoping to enjoy the sound of the lake and the breeze against the water. Murphy suddenly froze, then barked twice before bolting. "Tara?" I called out, wondering if she'd come by again. "Murphy, what is it?" Then I heard it, a splash in the water, followed by another bark, and then the roar of an engine. Tires screeched over gravel, then a violent crash. My coffee slipped from my hands. My body trembled. My heart pounded like a war drum. I tried to follow Murphy's barking, but I couldn't see. I gripped the dock railing, shouting, "Murphy, what's going on?" Then, I heard a voice I didn't expect to hear again. "Maybe you should have left when I warned you." It was Karen, and she wasn't alone. I froze in place. Her voice sliced through the morning haze like a blade. I turned toward the sound, trying to pinpoint her location. But in the darkness of my blindness, I could only sense the threat thick, heavy, and pressing against my chest. "Karen," I said, gripping the railing tighter. "You're trespassing. You're not allowed here." She didn't respond right away. Murphy barked again, sharper this time, angrier. Then a man's voice joined hers. It was gruff and unfamiliar. "Lady, you said this guy was old and harmless. A broken bar. He's blind," the man hissed. "That basically makes him harmless." My stomach twisted. I stepped backward, slowly retreating toward the cabin with one hand gripping the wooden railing for balance. My legs were shaking. Murphy barked louder. Then came a growl, low and threatening, the kind I hadn't heard since the fire, the one where he pulled me out of a collapsing staircase by the sleeve. "Murphy, heel," I yelled. But he didn't listen. Something was wrong. I reached the porch and slammed my palm against the emergency button mounted by the door. It sent a silent alert straight to Tara and the sheriff's office. They'd know something was happening. "You're making this more difficult than it needs to be," Karen shouted. "Just give up the property. Sign it over. That old shack isn't worth a thing. You could go live somewhere decent." "What are you even talking about?" I yelled back. "You came here with someone to threaten me. That's a crime." "Karen, you won't be able to prove it," she sneered. "You can't even see us." I clenched my fists, but then came a sound that chilled me to the core. Murphy was whimpering, not barking or growling, crying. Then came the clinking of a chain, dragging across the ground. "Leave him alone," I screamed. I stepped off the porch, heart pounding, sweeping the ground with my cane. I couldn't just stay still. I had to reach him, protect him. Something slammed into my side. I hit the ground hard, my elbow scraping against the rocks. "You're finished, old man," the other voice growled. "We're taking the dog and filing a lawsuit for the bite." "He didn't bite anyone," I yelled from the dirt. Then Karen's voice came again, fake sobs in her throat. "I told you he had a vicious animal. This is exactly what I warned the HOA about. He just attacked my partner." Everything spun. I couldn't fight people I couldn't see, but I wasn't about to give up either. "You need to get off my land," I shouted louder. "The sheriff is on his way." Murphy barked again, but it was faint and muffled, like someone was holding him back. Then I heard it. Sirens in the distance, getting closer. Karen cursed under her breath. "We need to leave now." "I'm not leaving without the dog," the man snapped. But the sirens kept coming. A car engine roared, tires skidded on gravel, and they sped away. I could hear Karen yelling as they drove off, her voice growing fainter until there was only silence again. Murphy let out another whimper. I crawled in the direction of the sound, heart pounding in my ears. My knees scraped across the rocks, but I didn't care. I reached out and found the worn leather of his harness. Then I felt his tongue lick my cheek. "You're okay?" I whispered, pulling him into my arms. "You're okay now." Moments later, tires screeched into the driveway. "John," Tara's voice rang out. I got the alert. "What happened?" "They were here," I said, pointing toward the trees. "Karen and some guy. They tried to take Murphy." The sheriff's car door slammed behind him. "We saw their vehicle." "We're already pursuing them," he said. "Are you all right?" "No," I admitted quietly. "But I will be." Murphy curled up beside me, still trembling. The sheriff knelt down and looked me in the face. "I think it's time we make sure that woman sees the inside of a jail cell," he said. Just as we began to breathe again, Tara called out from near the dock. She held something metallic and flat in her hand. It was a document of my property deed, but something was wrong. Tara flipped it over and squinted. "This says the cabin was sold to the Spruce Pines HOA yesterday." I stared blankly. That's impossible. She looked up at me, eyes wide. They forged the paperwork. John, this isn't just harassment anymore. This is fraud. Suddenly, the fight wasn't just about Murphy, it was about everything. I sat on the porch steps with Murphy resting at my feet, still shaken. The scent of pine and gasoline hung in the air, laced with fury mine and his. The sheriff walked back toward us, his boots crunching on the gravel. We followed Karen's car down County Line Road, he said, but they turned into one of those private HOA paths. We lost them. Tara stood next to him, still holding the forged deed like it might burst into flames. This document claims you sold the place yesterday, she muttered, but that signature is not yours and the notary stamp is fake. I know the real notary in town, and she's out on maternity leave. The sheriff held the paper up to the light. I'll send this over to the county clerk's office. If this was actually filed, we'll know first thing tomorrow. But why? I asked, my voice cracking. Why would she go this far? What does she even want with my cabin? He sighed. You'd be amazed what people will do for our lakefront land, especially when you mix in HOA politics. Land equals power. I ran a hand over Murphy's ears. He flinched. My blood boiled. She didn't just come after me, she went after him in my eyes, my anchor. Tara knelt down beside Murphy and gently checked him. No injuries, but I think they tried to use a collar leash on him. He's not used to that. They were trying to drag him away. They were setting him up, I whispered. They wanted to make it look like he attacked someone. The sheriff's expression darkened. That's not petty, that's criminal. He called his office and requested a patrol to be stationed nearby, just in case Karen or her accomplice returned. But I knew she wouldn't come back, not immediately. Karen wasn't reckless if she was calculating, and she wasn't acting alone. Someone in the county records office had to have processed that forged deed or at the very least, turned a blind eye. She had help. The following morning, with Tara's assistance, I contacted the county land office. Sure enough, the deed had been processed, transferred from Jonathan Miller to the Spruce Pines HOA, signed on July 15, notarized by Diane L. The woman on the phone stated, Diane's on maternity leave. Tara cut in sharply. My jaw clenched. She didn't authorize anything. The woman hesitated. Sir, if you believe there's been fraud, there's fraud, Tara snapped, and we're bringing proof. We spent the rest of the morning gathering every piece of evidence we had, trail cam images, video captures, and my original deed, which I pulled from the fireproof safe in my bedroom. I also had a secure backup on an encrypted USB drive via something my grandfather always insisted on. I trust paper less than I trust people, he'd say. And I don't trust people at all. By noon, we arrived at the county clerk's office. Murphy walked closely beside me, more alert than usual, his harness secure against his body. The woman at the front desk barely glanced up. We're here to report a forged deed filing, Tara said firmly. Another woman emerged from a back room. Her name tag read Clara. She wore striking red lipstick and had the composed, no-nonsense presence of someone used to being in control. Her polite smile vanished the moment she saw Murphy. I'm sorry, she said with a flat tone. No animals permitted. He's a guide dog, I replied. He's legally protected under federal law. Clara didn't argue, but the warmth never returned to her face. What seems to be the issue? Tara explained everything: Karen's role, the falsified notary stamp, the footage of the teenager slicing Murphy's leash. Clara's expression didn't change. When she finally spoke, her words sent a chill through me. We have no documentation of a Karen Witherspoon submitting the deed. It was left in an envelope. No listed contact details. No contact information, Tara repeated, eyebrows raised. That's not standard procedure. Clara shrugged. We accept documents by mail, as long as the fees are included and the paperwork appears complete. It goes through. And you don't verify notary stamps? I asked. We don't investigate notarizations. That responsibility falls to the person submitting the form. It was a bureaucratic trick, a system designed to avoid accountability. Then I want to file an official fraud complaint, I said. Clara's smile returned a faint, detached. You're welcome to do so. Just be aware, proving forgery is a lengthy process, and that delay was exactly what Karen was counting on. Later that evening, back at the cabin, I tried to rest, but Murphy refused to sleep near the front door like he usually did. Instead, He lay beneath my bed, uneasy. At first light, Tara was already on the porch, eyes wide with urgency. "There's more," she whispered. I was browsing the HOA's Facebook group. "Karen's posting things. Bragging." She pulled up a screenshot. Karen had written, "We're finally cleaning up Spruce Pines. Goodbye stray dogs and strange neighbors." My stomach sank. She thinks she's already won. Tara nodded solemnly, but she doesn't know what I found next. She handed me a printout of a screen capture of a real estate website. It was an ad. "Coming soon. Lakefront HOA cabin. Renovation opportunity, a Spruce Pines Lakeside Authority." The blurry photo? "My cabin. They're trying to flip my home," I said, my voice trembling. "That man with Karina, his name's Bryce," Tara said. "He's a real estate developer. This is what he does. Buys properties dirt cheap, drives the owners out, takes over the HOA, then sells everything at massive profit." "They never cared about living near me," I whispered. "They wanted my land." "Exactly." I stood, a surge of anger rising in my chest. "Then we fight back." "I've had enough of staying quiet," Murphy barked at once, loud and sharp. Then the radio clipped to the porch railing crackled to life. The sheriff's voice came through. "John, you need to get out of there. The cabin's in danger." "I'm en route." "Do not go inside." I turned to Tara, and at that moment, we both heard a sound, a slow, deliberate beeping, then a faint clicking noise from beneath the porch. "What is that?" I asked. Before she could answer, Tara screamed, "Get back!" Smoke began curling up from the gaps in the wooden boards. "Tara, move!" I shouted, stumbling away as the smoke thickened. Murphy barked in a frenzy, circling me with rising panic. Tara grabbed my arm and yanked me backward just as a loud crack exploded beneath us. The front corner of the porch collapsed, wood splinters flying through the air. We hit the ground hard, rolling through dirt and pine needles. I couldn't see the flames, but the heat was unmistakably pressing against my face, the crackle of burning wood surrounding us. Murphy huddled against my side, whimpering. Tara gasped, "John, a broken bar. There's a gas can down there. This isn't just a fiery." This was set. The radio on my belt buzzed again. The sheriff's voice now sounded even more urgent. "John, we got a report as someone saw Karen's car near your property 10 minutes ago. A unit's on the way. Do not go back inside." Too late. The fire had already spread. My home, my grandfather's legacy, the place I had built and rebuilt with my own hands, was going up in flames. And this time, there was no doubt about it. Someone wanted it destroyed. "They weren't just trying to scare you off," Tara said, eyes wide with panic. "They're trying to erase everything, to destroy the deed, the footage, all of it." I swayed on my feet. "The fireproof safe. The originals are still inside." Tara grabbed my arm. "John, number, you can't go back in. It's too dangerous." But I couldn't hear her anymore. Fear, rage, and desperation churned inside me. I had already lost too much. I wasn't about to lose everything. Murphy whined and tugged at my pant leg, trying to hold me back. Still, I staggered toward the back door. Just then, tires screeched against gravel. A door slammed. "John!" the sheriff shouted. "Get away from the cabin, it could blow." "There are documents inside," I called back. "Proof they forged everything." He didn't hesitate. "Where?" "In my office." "Metal box, bottom drawer." The sheriff didn't wait. He took off toward the back, radio in hand, calling for support. Tara gripped my shoulder tightly. "John, please stay here." We stood frozen as he vanished into the smoke. Each second stretched painfully long. I held on to Murphy's harness like a lifeline. Then came the crack of splitting wood, followed by a loud boom as the porch collapsed. I cried out, fearing the worst. But then, through the haze, the sheriff emerged, coughing and covered in ash, the scorched metal box clutched in his hand. "Got it," he gasped. "Let's open it and get to the courthouse," Tara said, pulling out her Jeep keys. "Hold on," the sheriff said, raising a hand. His phone buzzed. He answered, listened silently, then hung up with a hardened look in his eyes. "That was my deputy," he said flatly. "Karen just showed up at the courthouse with a lawyer. She's filing an emergency injunction to seize your cabin. It claims it's HOA property and that you're an illegal squatter." I laughed bitterly. "She's really going to pretend I'm the trespasser?" The sheriff gave a grim nod. She's trying to finalize it before anyone can intervene. We have to get there now. The ride to the courthouse was a blur. Tara drove like her life depended on it. Murphy sat between us, still trembling but alert. I kept my hand pressed against the safe. When we arrived, Karen was already in the lobby, standing beside a man in a gray suit with slicked back hair. "Bryce," I said the moment he spoke. I knew that voice. "Well, if it isn't the cabin guy," he smirked. "Shouldn't you be out evacuating?" "There's a fire near the lake." "That fire was your doing," I snapped. "And I've got proof." Karen's mask of fake concern vanished. "You don't have a thing," she hissed. "You're just a bitter old man who refuses to follow rules. You don't belong in Spruce Pines." "I belong here more than you ever did," I said quietly. The sheriff stepped forward, dropped the blackened safe onto the clerk's desk, and said firmly, "We need to see a judge immediately. This involves forgery, arson, and attempted theft." The clerk's eyes widened. "Arson." "We have footage," Tara added, spinning her tablet toward the counter. "And Bryce here, he's pulled this scam in at least 3 other counties." Karen's attorney looked rattled. "My client had no save it," the sheriff growled. "I've got enough to open a full investigation right now." 10 minutes later, we were in front of a judge. Karen tried her spin. "We were protecting the community. His dog attacked me. That cabin is a hazard." The judge raised a hand. "You attempted to seize land outside HOA authority. You filed a deed with a falsified notary stamp. You tampered with a guide dog's equipment. And now you've tried to destroy evidence by fire." Karen turned pale. Yeah, the judge turned to her lawyer. "Advise your client to remain silent." Then he faced me. "Mr. Miller, an emergency restraining order is being placed on the HOA and this developer. Your property is to be restored to your name immediately. A criminal investigation is now underway." I finally exhaled, the weight lifting until Tara's phone buzzed. She answered, then stiffened. "It's not over," she whispered. "What now?" "They've filed a lawsuit, John." Karen submitted it before we even got here. She held up the screen. At the top, HO versus Jonathan Miller for defamation, property damage, and emotional harm due to a dangerous animal attack. "They're blaming Murphy." Tara reread the filing, her voice tense. "They're asking for $250,000 in damages for emotional distress, trauma, and a community disruption caused by an unregistered, violent animal." My knees gave out and I dropped onto a bench. I reached instinctively for Murphy. He leaned into me, calm and steady and unaware someone had just tried to paint him as a monster. "She's not just after your land," Tara said quietly. "She's trying to take everything, even him." The sheriff paced a few feet away, face darkening. "He's already talking to the DA," the sheriff said, his voice tight. "This is a last-ditch effort." Karen scrambling to get ahead of the criminal charges closing in on her. She thinks spinning a dramatic story in civil court will shield her from prosecution. I exhaled slowly. "This isn't just about lawsuits anymore. It's personal. She hates us. She's scared of you," Tara said quietly. "You didn't cave, and that scares her more than anything." Later that evening, Tara stayed at the cabin with me. Firefighters had managed to put out the blaze. The porch was half gone, but the structure still stood charred, damaged, but intact. We sat together, eating sandwiches, watching Murphy finally settle by the fireplace. He curled up in a tight ball, eyes closed, breathing steady for the first time in days. "I'm going to find out who helped her forge that notary stamp," Tara said, her fingers flying across her laptop. Somebody at the clerk's office looked the other way. I nodded. "And I'll make damn sure no court paints Murphy as a threat. He's a hero. He saved lives. He saved me." Just then, my phone rang. It was the sheriff. "John, you need to hear this," he said. A moment later, I heard Karen's voice crackle over the speaker. "I don't care what it costs. Burn the whole porch if you have to. Just make it look like his mutt did something. I want that dog labeled dangerous. If we can't get the land through the paperwork, we'll get it through fear." My fist clenched. Murphy stirred beside me, sensing my rising anger. "That recording came from a confidential informant," the sheriff continued. "The state prosecutor's in the loop. If this goes to trial, she could be facing real prison time. But there's a snag," he added. "She's calling an emergency home meeting tomorrow, closed to outsiders. Word is, She's pushing her board to officially label Murphy a danger to the community. If they pass that vote, it could sway your civil case even if it's total garbage. I stood up slowly. So she wants a fight? I looked down at Murphy. Then we show up. The next day, Tara drove me to the Spruce Pines Community Center. I wore my cleanest shirt, gripped my cane, and let Murphy lead me through the front doors. The reaction was immediate. Murmurs, stares, gasps. He brought that dog. Isn't that the one Karen said attacked someone? Why is he even allowed in here? He's not on the HOA registry. We weren't welcome here, but we weren't backing down either. Karen stood at the head of the room, hair polished, her face the picture of composure. She forced a smile. Well, look who decided to join us. I suppose it's only fair that our guest hears what today's vote is about. She turned to address the crowd. Neighbors, we've endured so much lately in unauthorized animals, noise complaints, safety concerns. But tonight, we take a stand. For our children, for our peace of mind. The animal known as Murphy is unregistered, unstable, and has frightened multiple residents. Lies, I said evenly. Murphy is a federally certified guide dog, certified or not, she snapped. He's barked, growled, and acted aggressively more than once. In response to you breaking into my home, cutting his leash, filing false reports and starting a fire, I said coldly. The room gasped. Tara stepped up beside me and held out her phone. Would anyone like to hear what Karen really thinks? The room fell silent. Tara hit play. Just make it look like his dog did something. By the time the clip ended, even the most loyal HOA members looked uneasy. One man stood up from the front row. Is this real, Karen? You framed the dog? Karen's expression cracked. This is a setup. I don't have to respond to this ambush. That's when the sheriff walked in, holding a folder. Actually, you do. He handed the documents to the board. Inside are fire reports, sworn statements, and proof the notary stamp on the forged deed was fake. If this HOA approves this vote, you're opening yourselves to both civil and criminal charges. Karen went pale. The sheriff added, and if any member knowingly votes to label a federally protected guide dog as dangerous without cause, they could face federal consequences under the Americans with Disabilities Act. Silence. No one spoke. The vote was cancelled. Karen was escorted out of the building. Murphy stood tall beside me, head held high, golden fur glowing under the lights. He didn't need to bark, growl, or do anything at all. He had won the room just by being himself, steady, loyal, and kind. As we stepped outside, I breathed in the crisp lake air free, for the first time in weeks. Then my phone buzzed again. A blocked number. You may have stopped her, but I'm not done yet. I handed it to the sheriff. He read the message and nodded grimly. Bryce, the developer wasn't finished. And whatever came next wouldn't be from the HOA. It would be something bigger, something worse. That night, I barely slept. The sheriff parked his cruiser at the base of the driveway, headlights off, watching. Tara curled up on the couch, a baseball bat by her side. Murphy lay by my bed, ears twitching at every noise, the creak of floorboards, the rustle of leaves. Bryce had slithered back into the picture like a snake hissing from the shadows. You may have stopped her, but I'm not done yet. And the thing about snakes, they strike when you finally think you are safe. By morning, I could tell something wasn't right. Murphy stood in the doorway, tail stiff, nose to the wind. He paced in a tight, uneasy circle. The moment I stepped outside, I knew. I felt it. A pressure in the air, heavy and tense, like a storm about to break. But this wasn't weather. It was something else. Tara stepped outside holding her phone. You need to see this, she said grimly, reading aloud. HOA member files lawsuit against blind resident after alleged outburst at public meeting. The article was plastered with a doctored photo of Murphy mid-bark, crudely pasted next to a stock image of a snarling dog. A smear campaign. Again, she's twisting the truth still, Tara said. Karen may be out of the picture, but Bryce has connections, media, money, influence. Then we take our truth public, too, I said. By midday, Tara went live on Facebook. The video was titled, The Truth About My Guide Dog What the HOA Doesn't Want You to Know. She showed Murphy's service certification, clips from his training, footage of the teen being paid to cut his leash, and played the audio of Karen orchestrating the setup. Then came my voice. I lost my sight rescuing 2 kids from a burning home. I moved here hoping for peace and not to be treated like a problem. This dog isn't dangerous. He's my independence. He's my hope. The video took off like wild fury. 50,000 views, then 200,000. The comments flooded in. Messages from veterans, parents of visually impaired children, animal advocates, journalists and then a lawyer. Her name was Eliza Brooks, a renowned disability rights attorney. She offered to take my case for free. "We're not just defending Murphy," she said. "We're going after all of Ida, the forged documents, the harassment, the arson, the lies." The next day, we filed a countersuit. Jonathan Miller vs. Spruce Pines HOA, Karen Witherspoon, Bryce Alden, and all associated parties. A federal civil rights case. Just as things seemed to turn our way, the sheriff called. "I need you to come into town," quietly. When I arrived, he handed me a file. Inside were bank records of sizable transfers from Bryce's company to a clerk at the county records office. "Her name's Clara," the sheriff said. "She's the one who fast-tracked the forged deed and arranged the notary." This wasn't just HOA drama. This was an organized land grab. Karen hadn't been the mastermind. She was just the front. Bryce was the one pulling the strings. Their plan was Clara erase my title, evict me, demolish the cabin, and replace it with a sleek vacation rental. And Murphy, just the excuse to scare me off. But I wasn't going anywhere. A week later, we were back in court. The courtroom was full. Reporters lined the walls. Bryce sat across from us in a tailored suit, grinning like he owned the place. Eliza stood tall beside me, steady and unshaken. The judge called our case. We laid out everything: the fake deed, the recordings, surveillance footage, the slanderous news pieces, the bribes to Clara, and the HOA's unlawful attempts to impose rules beyond their legal reach. And then Murphy entered, wearing his full-service harness, calm and poised. He sat beside me without a sound. Eliza addressed the court. "Your Honor, this dog has done more to protect lives and preserve human dignity than this HOA ever has. This isn't just discrimination, it's systematic abuse, targeted, malicious, and illegal." Bryce's attorney tried to spin it, claiming the HOA had acted within its rights to uphold neighborhood standards. But the judge didn't buy it. The ruling came down. Murphy was officially recognized as a federally protected guide dog, exempt from all HOA interference. The fake deed voided. Clara arrested for corruption. Karen given probation and permanently barred from serving on any HOA board. And Bryce hit with criminal charges, a massive civil penalty, and placed under federal investigation. But the judge didn't stop there. He issued a landmark ruling. Spruce Pines HOA had overstepped its legal authority and was ordered to release all claims on properties outside its jurisdiction, including mine. For the first time in a long while, I was truly free. So was Murphy. That evening, I sat on the newly rebuilt porch of my cabin. The boards were fresh. The railing was stronger than before. Murphy lay curled beside me, finally at peace. Tara came out with 2 mugs of hot tea. "So Broken Bar, what now?" I smiled. "We rebuild. Maybe fix up that old shed next." She grinned. "You know the whole internet's in love with you and Murphy now, right? You're basically famous." I laughed. "Let him know one thing. You don't mess with a man's dog, especially when that dog is his eyes." We clinked mugs. Somewhere across the lake, I imagined Karen watching the same sunset from her porch. No title, no power, no control. Justice had been done. And Murphy, he stretched out, yawned, and pressed his head gently against my leg like he understood what he'd accomplished. He hadn't just won a court battle, he defended the one person who needed him most. That's what heroes do. If this story spoke to you, if it reminded you of the quiet strength of loyalty, truth, and standing your ground, share it. Like, comment, let us know where you're watching from, because kindness isn't weakness, and silence isn't surrender.